listener! Was it a good idea to employ me, Claptrap, a lovable robot with an admittedly shrill voice, to tell you about the next great looter shooter, Borderlands 4? Of course not! But you are listening, and that's the sick truth of marketing. Behold! Marketing hypnosis! Borderlands 4! Borderlands 4! Borderlands 4! Buy it! Buy it! Succumb to the marketing!
Rated M for mature.
Welcome to Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin? No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Oldish. The art of knowing more and caring less. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Earlier this week on Oldish, we sat down with John Edward, one of the world's most recognized psychic mediums, for a really powerful, eye-opening conversation that explored his life, his gift, and the experiences that shaped it all. Today, we're joined in the studio by Bob Hilland, a former FBI agent and John's co-author on their new book, Chasing Evil. This conversation takes a fascinating turn as Bob shares how his background in law enforcement led him into one of the most unlikely collaborations with a psychic medium. Together, they wrote a book that blends investigative insight with intuitive knowing in a way that I don't think has ever really been done before. So buckle up, because Chasing Evil is not just a book, it's a wake-up call. And you're about to hear from the man who wrote it. Bob Hilland, welcome to Oldish.
Thanks for having me.
Here.
Welcome to Oldish, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
It's so great having you here. Thank you for coming and talking about life and the book and everything that's going on. I know it's a lot for you, and this is outside the box
100%.
For you. You are used to being much more in the shadows and sort of dealing with things, and now all of a sudden you're doing all these podcasts and this book tour, and you're talking about it.
Territory.
Yeah. Well, welcome to this world.
We had John on a few days ago. Right. This is usually our kind of recap episode, but we thought it would be fun to have you on here since we talked about the book. This book, Chasing Evil. I do not normally read books like this. I'm not a true crime person. It seems like everyone and their friend are true crime.
For sure.
Just everything true crime.
Yes.
But it's such an interesting world bringing John into this, because you started as a skeptic, cop,
100%.
FBI agent, did not want to hear anything about him. He kept popping up on the radio.
That's right.
You kept pushing it away. What was the point where you said, okay, I'm going to reach out to him?
Well, at the time I was working in New York. This was before 9/11, 1998, and I was on a squad investigating unsolved murders. And, you know, our typical cases involve mob cases, that kind of thing. And I was previously a police officer in Jersey, and I was aware of this old case that was unsolved. And I would hear John on the radio. It was a New York radio station, WPLJ, which I don't think exists anymore. And he would come on and he would do his thing and claim that if he spoke to somebody on the phone, that he could connect with their loved ones on the other side. And I was incensed by this. I said, come on, how stupid can people be? This is not. I would shut the radio off. It felt to me like, if you ever heard the Jerky Boys years ago, it felt like a prank call thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
And how stupid could people be? And then a week or two later, I'd hear him again. And I don't know why it bothered me so much, but it really did. It did. And then finally, after hearing, I think 3 or 4 times, one day I was driving in and I said, all right, I'm going to meet this guy, and I'm going to either determine that he's a fraud, a con, which I thought he was, or worst case, maybe he is who he says he is, and maybe some value comes out of this. So that was the premise by which I met him. What was so fascinating was his assistant called me one day and said, hey, John's available to meet with you tomorrow. Can you come in? And I didn't even think he was going to meet with me. I kind of dismissed it. And she said, the only thing he's asking you to bring are items that belong to whoever this person is you're looking for. So like what? She said it could be clothing, jewelry, something of that nature. All right. So a detective on the case in Jersey, I called him up and I said, hey, we're going to go talk to this guy and go get some things out of evidence. And he does. Well, that day before I went to see John, I walked around my office to different women and I would say, hey, Sally, let me borrow your necklace. Hey, Julie, let me borrow this. So I brought
just to try and
as control items, right? So in my head, if he starts picking up on one of these other things, I know he's not who he says he is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just to fast forward, I get to his office, and I'll never forget that day. He walked out, and he had just got done with some other clients, and they were very emotional. And I kind of felt like anger towards John, like, this guy's manipulating people who are in grief. And he brought us back into the room, and he said, hey, in a minute here, I'm going to get started. I don't want you to give me any information. I don't want you to affirm anything I say. I'm just going to let you know what comes through. And I may say things that do not resonate with you. So we put these objects on the desk in front of him, and he kind of took a breath, looked back and forth, and very slowly he started pulling items together, and he said, I don't know what these things are, but they have nothing to do with why you're here. And those were the items that I brought. Yeah. So that certainly had my attention.
Yeah. Wow.
He then proceeded to pick up a pair of eyeglasses that belonged to our victim. And the things that he said were impossible for him to have known. He called her by her name. He said she has two names. It's like Betty Fran, but she goes by Fran. He described her physically with specificity, like she has metal in her hip, like pins or a rod. She has different attributes. He said she's dead, and the person responsible for death is either boyfriend or husband, and his name starts with a J. It's like John. These were all factual things. From there, he proceeded to provide information, much of which we knew, but all of a sudden he started providing things that were unknown to us. And one of the big things, he mentioned whose name is Michael. Well, Michael was the younger brother of John Smith. And John that day said, Michael is the key to this case. Michael knows the information that you need to find. John then at that moment, his face kind of shifted, and he looked at me and he said, wait a minute, why are you really here? And he's pretty adamant. And I said, well, I heard you. No, you already have this body. I see it. There's a wooden box on the side of the road, these police cars, and he's describing the scene. He says, newspaper article, girl in the box, you have this body. Why are you here? And at this point, I have no idea, nor this detective, what he's talking about. And all of a sudden you see this look come over John. He goes, oh, wait a minute. This guy has killed other people. The police have found one of his victims. You guys just haven't made the connection yet. And the last piece on that first day was I put him on the phone with our victim's daughter with the hope that he would somehow connect and do his thing. And in doing so, strangely, he connected to me and started telling me things about my family, much of which I knew and more of things that I didn't know. So for me, that was shocking. And it wasn't like all of a sudden I'm all in on this guy. No, that's not how it happened. I had to figure out, is he getting over on me? Is there anything he could have deduced from anything? So for me, it forced me to go back and ask him more questions. And that was kind of how our relationship evolved.
Got it.
Can I ask you, when you got home that day, that first day after going to his office, and you're laying in bed at night, was your brain just like running a marathon of, oh my God, these are different things, and I kind of want to check this out, but I'm not, like, what was going through your mind that first night? Yeah,
it was a tennis match. So on the one side, logically, I said, okay, well, how could he have done this? I'm doing the math. And then the other side is saying, there's no way he could have known this, right? There's this back and forth. And then the personal stuff that he shared about me and my family, every family has things, right?
Yeah.
And for him to tell me with specificity some of those things. And that day, John had said, listen, this information I just provided, you need to go share this with your parents. And my dad is like Archie Bunker, if you remember Archie Bunker. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wanted to talk to him, but I was embarrassed. And then a few days later, I couldn't live with myself anymore, and I called him. And I will tell you, the only emotion my father ever demonstrated was anger in his life. That day on the phone, he got very emotional with me when I shared the information that John provided. So yeah, that's how our relationship started. And then over time, it evolved and it shifted. And that one case led to the next, to the next, to the next over 25 years. And some of these cases are in this book, right?
You talked about, though, that you felt very guarded about sharing the information that you were getting and how you were getting it because of the people you worked with and what it is you did and how it would be perceived.
Yeah,
right?
well, the FBI, we don't talk to psychics, all right? I mean, we're logic, evidence, facts, right? We talk to witnesses and suspects and that kind of thing. We don't conduct investigations by polygraph, or by psychics, rather. That's not how it works. So, and certainly I didn't want my own credibility to be hurt. And I'm the kind of guy, I promise you, but from my own experience in meeting John the way it did, if one of my colleagues or subordinates came to me and said, "Hey, Bob, I'm talking to a psychic," I would have said, "What, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy?"
You're fired.
Yeah,
we're going to have to let you go.
My impression of that agent would have went from here to there.
Right.
You're out of your mind.
So fall has this sneaky way of showing up. It really does. Like one day it's iced coffee and sandals, and the next it is, why are my feet getting cold?
Right? So cold, especially my toes. You know what it means to me is that it's time to break out my new Bombas Higher socks. They are warm, they're cushy, and honestly, they're the only socks that I'm going to be wearing this season.
Well, okay, I just got the new Bombas slippers last week. Oh my gosh, they are ridiculously comfortable. I don't really want to leave the house once they're on type comfortable.
That's it, man. They really do. Like the merino wool that keeps you cozy without overheating, the Supima cotton that actually breathes, that thick rag wool. That's the kind of sock that feels like hot chocolate. It's like hot chocolate by the fire.
Yes,
it's delicious.
It totally is like that. And you know, it really feels good when you remember that every purchase means Bombas donates an item to someone experiencing homelessness. That's over 150 million items so far and counting.
Which means that while we're staying warm, someone else is staying warm too. I mean, I just feel good knowing that.
Definitely.
They have this happiness guarantee too. Like it means that if for any reason it's not a perfect fit, they're going to make it right, which is crazy. It's no hassle, no stress.
Honestly, though, you're probably going to just want more.
That's true.
Yeah, it's true. You guys should head to bombas.com/audio and use code audio for 20% off your first purchase.
That's bombas.com/audio.
Code audio for 20% off your first purchase.
Bombas, they're more than just socks.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
So you knew that, and so you couldn't share this information and how you were getting this information. John didn't want his name out there. He didn't want anything known.
Right. And I want to make it clear, in none of the cases you'll read in the book, did John ever give me evidence. He led me to where I might find that evidence. So there's a big difference. So a lot of people ask, well, when you went to prosecute this case, how did you explain the evidence?
Right.
Well, the evidence is the evidence.
Right.
The best.
That's all factual. That's not like somebody's opinion or somebody's hunch.
The best analogy I can give you guys is before today, where we have GPS that tells us where we need to go. Mm-hmm. Remember the old days when you got lost and you pulled over and asked a stranger for directions, and they said, "Hey, go down this road, look for a red barn, and turn left." Mm-hmm. That was how it was with John. He would say, "Look for the barn, and when you see this thing, do this." That was the best way I can explain it to you.
That's incredible. When I was reading the book, what I was wondering throughout, you referenced your family, right? And your wife calling saying, "Are you going to be home for dinner?"
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that you were going to take this John Smith case and how deep you were going to go into that. Right. How do you live both lives between going so deep in something so dark and then being home with your family and not just having that run through your mind at all times?
That's a great question. I think the answer is you compartmentalize things, right? I mean, that's your job and that's what you do, and then you come home. I think it was challenging, the sacrifices and there are a lot of great FBI agents and law enforcement, but there's a cost to this job, and that sacrifice often is time away from my family. So, and when I would discuss, for example, John with my wife, she thought I was crazy. She said, "What are you, out of your mind?" So that was a hard thing, because not that I was trying to make her to be a believer, because I wasn't, right? But I think one of the things I learned through my relationship with John was to question my assumptions and be more open-minded about things, right? Because what's that saying? I think Muhammad Ali said, the guy who looks at the world the same way when he's 50 as he did when he was 20 has wasted 30 years of his life, right? You got to grow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that was it for me, but it was challenging. And not for just this case. I mean, we all went through 9/11 together, all that. So it's a question I'm asked all the time is, how do you deal with it? Well, I think you look at your job as your job. Now, that doesn't mean when you have really tragic cases of a child being murdered or something, it doesn't hurt. It does, but you have to look at it from the position of, I am called to do this, and I have to remain objective to be effective in my job. Right?
Now, being somebody that compartmentalizes, though, was it then hard to go home having this new information and this new avenue of information and sharing it, and then not blending the two, blending home and family and work, because it's like all of a sudden somebody I would assume it's like somebody opens a curtain and says, "Oh, there's a new view, there's a new window to look out," and you're like, you want to share it with everybody.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, right? It's where over the course of the career, there were only a certain close circle of people that knew my relationship with John. Mm-hmm. But to your question about coming home, my wife would always say to me, "I hate the FBI. The FBI is the other woman in the marriage," right? So she had that position. She didn't want to hear about what I was doing. And I certainly didn't want to talk to her about the details of some of these cases, because they're horrific. I didn't want to dump that on her. Mm-hmm. But then add to it, hey, this guy, John Edward, he's a con. What are you doing getting aligned with him? It was challenging, right?
Has it changed in 25 years from people being very skeptical and saying psychic to now things feel like they've evolved a little bit? Maybe it's more accepted. Have you seen anything shift or change with that?
With regard to law enforcement, you mean?
Accepted, is it really valued? I mean, I would assume that as you see somebody doing so well working with someone like John, that you start going, God, I want my own personal.
No, right. I think the way to answer this, and this is a great question, is there are more cases that I worked without John, because investigations start with circumstance and facts and leads and witnesses and avenues of logical investigative merit, right? So there are many cases where I don't want to say I didn't need John, but I didn't need John. You conduct it as is. But there are cases that go cold for a reason. It's not because nobody cared about them. It's because everything has been exhausted.
You're missing the pieces.
Or worse yet, and this is the most frustrating thing for law enforcement, there's a difference between knowing something or knowing somebody did something and being able to prove it. Those are two different things.
Right.
So I would challenge the skeptics, and I get all the skeptics, right? I was that guy, right? And I didn't just jump in the water and go, I'm all in with this guy, John Edward. It was an evolution for me.
It was a process.
But I would challenge those who were skeptical to say, God forbid, somebody you cared about was missing, or some event happened, and you got an investigator like me, and I have run every lead down, and I can't locate that person. There are no more places to look. But yet I know this guy. His name is John Edward. And maybe by talking to him, he could point me in a direction. Would you not want me to leverage that resource?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's a
Without
great
question.
way of putting it.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a couple questions here, but I have to ask this.
Yeah.
How has your view of life, of death, changed in the last 25 years?
So that's a great question. I was raised in a Lutheran church, right? I went to church all the time. And for me, the world as a young guy is black and white, right? God sees everything. You do good, you live by God's word and be a good person. If not, you're going to a bad place. He sees everything. And there's a heaven and there's a hell, and you follow the rules. And that's it's black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also in my own professional life, when you're a young guy, I think you see the world as black and white. But I think as you get older through experience, you realize there's shades of gray. I think, to your question, how have my beliefs shifted? I still believe in God. There's no question about that. My beliefs have not shifted at all. If anything, from my experience with John, it has further validated for me that whatever this is that we're all sitting here experiencing, this is the opening act.
Love that.
This is the opening act for what's to come. And there's connections here, many of which we don't even see or understand. There's a lot that goes on, and I don't want to sound crazy here, but through John and the experiences I had, there was always the struggle in some of the things where he would say, hey, look for this sign in a case. You're going to see this thing. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? And then when that thing would appear during the investigation, logically I would say, well, that's just a coincidence. That doesn't mean anything. Wait a minute, John said that would happen. And then when I would pursue that, it led to an outcome. So for me, I learned, not right away, not to question the signs, but to accept them for what they are and see where those things led me.
Yes. So to be open,
right,
see the signs, and be open to the outcome of them.
They appear for a reason, and people may think what I'm saying is nonsense, but the things that you're going to read in this book. By the way, the book was not written to convert anybody, right? I'm not trying to get anybody to believe in John. These are things that happen, and some of the cases, it might have been a little anecdotal comment John made to me, like, "Hey, look for this or look for that," but that led to a certain outcome. What I hope the readers take away with this is a few things. I hope when they read this, I know they're going to feel like they're part of these cases, because there's going to be dialogue in that case where you're going to be part of the conversation with John and I. And when we recorded the audiobook, it was almost like reliving some of these cases. But I hope they also see that this thing about good and evil is real, right? And there's a struggle. And I always say, and I've learned from my career, I found good where I least expected it, and I found bad where I least expected it. And the last part is the sacrifices, the sacrifices we all went through, John and his family, me and my family. And I am just a reflection of thousands of people who dedicate themselves to these cases, right? I mean, law enforcement oftentimes gets a bad rap, sometimes justifiably so, but more often not.
Well, it's like you were saying, that sometimes in the best places you find the worst things, and in the worst.
Yeah. And I want people out there to know that it is equally important for us to exonerate innocent people as it is to identify the ones that did these crimes. And I hope people find meaning in this in their own personal lives, whatever they're this was a journey for John and I, certainly for me, for many years.
This episode is brought to you by KPMG. Making an impact is how KPMG helps make the difference. KPMG applies advanced tools and strategic thinking to convert data into actionable knowledge and deliver value by improving performance through transformation, modernizing processes with technology, harnessing the power of data, navigating complex M&A transactions, and enhancing trust among stakeholders. Go to kpmg.us/advisory to learn more. KPMG. Make the difference.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
There were so many angles to this book. I found myself going, okay, I'll just read a little bit more. And I was on the edge of my seat. It very much reads like a movie. I don't know if a movie's being made about this, but it very much reads like a movie. I could picture all of it. And as I was going through, the relationship with you two oddly touched me, because here you are, a skeptic, and here he is doing what he does. Yeah. Sometimes he almost comes off too as non-emotional for something that is very dark, and you're talking about murders. He's very much just giving the information. Yeah. And then, though, reading through these cases and bit by bit, like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? And it was just a beautiful blend of storytelling, of relationship, and of your journey in growth from where you started to where this all wound up.
Yeah. Our evolution, our relationship, it didn't just happen. It was. Again, when I met him, I thought he was a con,
You wanted to bust him.
I did.
You said before
I
you
did.
wanted to catch him doing something.
And I'll tell you, he's like a brother to me now. We've been through a lot. It's remarkable. It often felt, I look back at in reading the book and writing it, it was like a football game. He was handing me the ball and telling me which route to run, right? It felt like that. And he was excited to see what I would do with it. But it was a journey, and for him and for I. And going through this process with the book, it's funny, as much as you think you know about somebody, when you go through the process of writing a book and then discussing the book, you learn new things, right? And that's interesting. You know?
Yeah.
This is a really cool conversation to witness because, like, my fiance and I talk about it all the time. I am spiritual. I'm not religious. Like, I've never really been tied to a religion.
Right.
So you talking about the black and white of it all and being spiritual, and then having this experience, you realize that, that there is a higher power that feeds way more than people expect there to be. Like you assume that, there's either this or this. And it's like, no, all this stuff in the middle, if you truly are religious, comes from the same higher power that you were speaking of, that you originally thought just this black and white was from. So to kind of be open to all of it is amazing because it's so transformative.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I am concerned as we move forward. There are going to be those critics that you referred to, but everybody has their opinion. I think the problem is when you are so extreme in any belief, whether you're extreme right wing, extreme left wing, you're no longer open.
Right.
Your aperture is so closed.
Right.
And I think for me, over the years, I've learned to open my aperture. Now, that doesn't mean I've checked my brain at the door.
Right.
That doesn't mean
always
that.
critical thinking.
I always, even all these years, when he would tell me something, I would say, all right, now you finally cracked
That's your
on.
character.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, you never lose your character. You can adjust it, though.
And I think that chemistry between John and I, because I was the guy, while I was open to listening to him, I would say, yeah, okay, now this doesn't make any sense.
It's too much. Right.
And then oftentimes it would, and I'd be like, damn.
Right. But that's an important point for anyone to have discernment while staying open in any conversation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that what you're saying, Brian, I have to accept as my truth, but it doesn't mean that I have to shoot it down because you're in a shade of gray and I'm in a black or white. And I think that's where people just end up missing each other.
Because they don't talk through it all. They're not open to hearing each other's experience and each other's opinion and all of that. So it's like, mine is this, yours is that, so we're opposing, and that's all it is. We have to agree to disagree on this. And it's like, you don't listen to each other. I guarantee you'll find way more that you agree with than you thought.
I think we've lost that ability a little bit.
Oh,
I agree.
A lot bit.
I agree. Bob, was this book cathartic for you in some way?
It was. I initially wrote the first draft of the book, 6 or 7 years ago, and the story was basically how I met John, and it went into great detail as we discussed here. So it was that first case and how we went through that together. But then, as I concluded my career with the FBI and retired, John and I always kicked around the idea of this, and we said, well, we worked on a lot of stuff together. What if we put it together? And the truth is, we had a hard time doing this because each one of these cases could have been a book, right? And I don't know that I had it in me to write many books, but we're trying to squeeze a lot of it in. So it was cathartic, at least when I wrote it for the first time, and I think also, on a personal level, it was kind of a tribute to my kids, right? All the time away, I wanted them to go.
This is why.
Right.
I want you to read this to better understand.
I want you to understand, right? So I think it was a tribute to them as well.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I didn't think of it like that at all.
But yeah, I mean, if you care about your legacy and what's left, like that's a major part that somebody can sit down and read that and go, God.
And I think it's not unique to my profession or yours, but I think when you're so focused on whatever your craft is, there's a determination there. And I probably could have been better about balancing that. But, every strength, whatever your strength is, also represents a weakness. Mm-hmm. So I'm like a dog with a bone. That made me maybe good as an investigator, but bad in other parts of my life, not be able to let things go. And you're going to see in the book, especially as it ends, I've learned how to balance that better, right? So
there's the growth. Right.
All that experience, all the stuff you look back on and you go, God, didn't handle that well. Those are the things that made you who you are now, sitting in this seat, having that book and sharing with the world. This is the journey that I took and this is where I am now.
It's that old adage, right? You know, nobody gets a free pass in life. Everybody's going to get something, whatever that thing is. We're all going to be faced with that trial and tribulation. And when you're going through that pain, it hurts, whatever that is for you. And you think, how could it, poor me, God, why did this happen? And you got to keep moving forward. But then you have to realize at some point, once you navigate those crises, all those bad things, it's going to lead you to a great thing. And you're going to reflect back and say, you know what? I had to go through all those bad things to get to this great thing. And it makes sense looking back. And I think you'll see that in the book too.
There's a silver lining to everything if you can step back and really look for it. Always. There always is.
It's the good and the bad.
You have to have, that's the yin and the yang. You have to have both.
Yeah.
To appreciate the real good, you have to have real bad.
But it's hard when you're going through the hard.
You're in it going, why?
Right.
Why am I going through this?
It's like everything gets, and at least for me, especially as a young guy, when the bad stuff happened, man, I always use this analogy, and I kind of learned this from John too. As a young guy, it was like the waves of life hit you, right? I mean, and I would stand in the face of it and try to punch back the wave, and the wave is going to knock you down every single time. And then as you get older, you realize, you know what? If I surrender to it and just trust that the tide is going to pull me where I'm supposed to go, there's a lesson there.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's a good one.
Bob, thank you for writing the book. For everyone out there, Chasing Evil, it is a page turner. It's out now, and I can't wait to see the response because I told you, I don't read books like this, and I was on my couch just going through it. And I think it's going to be really well received.
And thank you for being here and having your perspective, just sharing your perspective on life, because there are so many different types of people, and there are absolutely people. We were talking about it before. I'm very scientific minded. Like I want a reasonable explanation for everything. So to have somebody on that is that way, that is now opening up to other things is. At this time, like we were just talking about, with everything so polarized and being, this opinion versus this one, and this is a fact, and everybody's at odds with everyone. It's amazing to see someone successfully navigate that and come out at the end where it's like I'm still me, but I'm open to things. I think that's an incredible lesson for people to learn and to see.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for being with us.
Hey, it was great meeting you guys, and I wish you guys success in your journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So thank you for being with us. Again, the book is Chasing Evil. And as we always say, please like, follow, subscribe, because it helps us bring on guests like Bob. We'll see you next time.
I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that you don't have to navigate life alone. If there's something hard that you're dealing with, or you're just ready for a change, then reach out to me at randyspelling.com, or you could DM me on Instagram, also at randyspelling. And if I can help you, I will. If there's a resource that I can share with you, I will also do that as well. Thanks.